Some legacies aren't carved in stone or sung from rooftops. They live quietly in melodies that outlast generations, in lyrics that feel like prayers whispered through the cracks of a broken heart. And sometimes they live with two people who decided that music wasn't just something to perform, but something to live, you know? In a world where songs come and go faster than we can remember the words, there are a few that stay. They linger because they carry the truth. Real truth, the kind that doesn't need production or perfection to move you. That's what Bill and Gloria Gaither gave the world. Not just music, but moments that remind us what it means to believe. It's strange to think that before all of this, the albums, the awards, the sold-out stages, Bill was just a young English teacher in a small Indiana town. Chalk dust on his sleeves, papers stacked high, a quiet dream tucked behind the everyday routine. And somewhere down the hall there was Gloria, the French teacher. Brilliant, calm, the kind of person who could make silence feel full. Their paths crossed not with fireworks, but with conversation. Shared thoughts on literature, on faith, on how the right words could change someone's day, or maybe even their life. It wasn't long before those conversations turned into something more. Two souls in harmony before they ever sang a note together. When they finally married in 1962, they didn't just start a life, they started a legacy. Evenings were spent at kitchen tables, scribbling lyrics on scraps of paper, harmonies floating through the house while lesson plans waited untouched. Teaching by day, writing by night, chasing something they couldn't yet name, but somehow knew was waiting for them. Then came He Touched Me, just a simple song, written with a simple heart. But when it was finished, it didn't feel small anymore. It felt like a door opening, like the start of something that couldn't be contained in a classroom. And when Elvis sang it, that little door blew wide open. So Bill did the unthinkable. He walked away from the safe path, left the classroom behind. Because sometimes faith doesn't shout, it whispers. And he listened. Gloria followed, and together they built something sacred. Not just a music career, but a ministry through melody. The songs came like confessions, like prayers you didn't know you'd been holding inside. Because He lives. Born in a season of fear when the world felt uncertain and their own lives were shifting. But out of that came hope, a quiet, trembling, unshakable hope. Because He lives, I can face tomorrow. That wasn't just a lyric. It was survival. It was the kind of truth that wraps around your heart and doesn't let go. Their music wasn't meant to impress. It was meant to heal. You didn't just listen. You felt seen. You felt like someone finally put your struggle into words and sang it back to you with compassion. That's the kind of connection you can't fake, the kind that stays long after the final note fades. And now, as people whisper and wonder about what's next for Bill Gaither with Gloria's health in the headlines, maybe the real answer isn't about what comes next. Maybe it's about what remains. The songs, the faith, the truth that they built together, note by note, word by word, because some legacies don't end. They echo. In every voice that still sings those songs, in every heart that still finds hope in their words. And if you listen closely, you can still hear it. A love story, a faith story, a melody that refuses to fade. There's a moment in every artist's life when a song stops being just sound and becomes something larger, almost sacred. For Bill and Gloria Gaither, The King is Coming was that moment. It didn't just play through speakers, it thundered through hearts. You could almost see the hope, the glory, the sky opening wide. It wasn't just a performance, it was a glimpse of forever. And then there was Jesus. There's something about that name. Simple. Barely more than a whisper, but somehow it carried eternity in it. A melody that didn't need to shout to be heard. Just the quiet power of faith sung with conviction. That's the paradox of the Gaithers. They could fill arenas with sound or silence, and either way, you'd leave changed. What made their music so magnetic wasn't just the sound, it was the way they created it. Gloria, with her pen dipped in poetry, understood how to make theology feel human. Bill, always listening, could turn an ordinary moment into melody. Together they didn't just write songs. They had conversations in verse. Every lyric was a dialogue between spirit and sound, between heaven and home. By 2012, they had written over 700 songs. 700 prayers, really. Each one born from life, from laughter, from loss. They weren't trying to top charts. They were trying to touch hearts, and maybe that's why their songs endure, because they were never meant to be hits. They were meant to be healing. But the Gaithers weren't content to just stay behind a piano or a pulpit. They built something larger, a community, a movement. The Bill Gaither Trio was the spark. Bill, his brother Danny, and Gloria, 3 voices, 1 purpose. Their harmonies weren't just technically perfect. They were spiritually alive. You didn't just hear them, you felt them. Then came the next chapter, the Gaither Vocal Band. A revolving door of powerhouse voices, each one adding a new color to the canvas. When they sang, you didn't just get chills. You felt lifted. It wasn't performance. It was participation. Worship that sounded like joy, and then the Homecoming Series. Maybe the most beautiful thing Bill Gaither ever dreamed into existence. Imagine decades of gospel legends, young voices and old, gathering in circles, laughing, reminiscing, singing songs that had carried them through life's storms. No spotlight, no pretense, just faith in its purest form, passed from one generation to the next. Bill was always there, not as the star, but as the shepherd, the curator of memory, and behind it all, always Gloria. The quiet strength, the editor, the writer, the heartbeat that kept every project anchored in grace. She didn't just write the words. She protected the soul behind them. From those first handwritten lyrics on napkins to packed arenas filled with light, their story has always been the same. A love letter to faith, to music, to each other. But behind every melody, there's a mind at work. Bill Gaither wasn't just a songwriter. He was a builder. He built an empire not of ego, but of excellence. Gaither Music Company wasn't just a label. It was a legacy, a home for artists who believed that ministry and mastery could coexist. Every project, every album, every video was touched with care so intentional you could feel it. The Gaither Studios became a creative sanctuary, producing not just music, but moments. And the Gaither Management Group kept the heartbeat steady, organizing the tours, the logistics, and the countless details that turned gatherings into something sacred. And yet, even in the biggest arenas, it always felt small, personal, like you'd been invited into their living room to sing along. Then there was Gaither Family Resources, the bridge between artist and audience. Books, devotionals, DVDs, all created to remind people that faith isn't just something you hear on Sunday, it's something you live every day. And with hundreds of songs covered worldwide, their copyright branch became more than business. It became guardianship. Protecting not profits, but purpose. Even when the industry shifted, Bill stayed steady. Co-founding Spring Hill Music Group in the 90s gave him the freedom to create without compromise. While others chased trends, the Gaithers stayed true to truth. Because that's the thing about faith, it doesn't need rebranding. Through it all, their ministry grew, but it never lost its soul. Every concert, every broadcast, every piece of merchandise carried that same heartbeat. To uplift, to encourage, to remind people that they are not alone. But of course, every light casts a shadow. And the Gaither story, for all its triumphs, has known sorrow too. Loss has a way of softening the edges of a story, doesn't it? In 2001, when Bill's brother Danny passed away after a long battle with illness, the music world lost one of its purest voices. But for Bill, it was more than that. He didn't just lose a singer, he lost a brother, a friend, a fellow traveler who had carried the same songs, the same faith, through countless miles and memories. Danny's tenor was the sound of their beginnings, the heartbeat of the trio that first made the Gaither name known. When that voice fell silent, something in Bill's world changed. The harmonies were never quite the same, but somehow they grew deeper. And then in 2018 came another goodbye. Mary Ann Gaither, their sister, their joy, their anchor. Her laughter had filled green rooms. Her humility had grounded every performance. Losing both siblings, the ones who stood beside him in the earliest days, left a hollow space that only heaven could hold. But even then, the music didn't stop. It shifted. It became gentler, more honest. Every note seemed to carry both grief and gratitude. Because when the Gaithers sing about heaven, they're not guessing. They're remembering. That's what makes their story so rare. Their songs aren't theories. They're testimonies. Every lyric bears the weight of a life fully lived, with faith tested and love proven. And at the heart of that truth stands Gloria. Always there, pen in hand, quiet but unshakable, Gloria Gaither has never been just a lyricist. She's a theologian who writes in poetry instead of prose, a scholar who weaves scripture into song without ever losing warmth. Her education, her curiosity, her devotion, all of it finds its way into her writing. When she earned her master's degree in literature while already balancing motherhood and ministry, it wasn't about credentials. It was about going deeper into meaning, into language, into life, into God, and you can hear that depth in every line she's written. She doesn't shy away from doubt or pain. She names them, honors them, because she understands that faith isn't about pretending the valleys don't exist. It's about learning how to walk through them with hope intact. Through more than 40 books, 20 for children, Gloria has spoken to hearts of all ages. Her words for kids are never simple fluff. They're small seeds of truth, planted gently, meant to grow over a lifetime. She writes like someone who knows that what we tell a child about love, grace, and courage becomes the way they see the world. 7 honorary doctorates later, her voice continues to shape how people think about faith and art. Professors study her words. Pastors quote her lines. But perhaps the greatest measure of her influence isn't found in accolades. It's in the quiet tears of someone sitting in a church pew, hearing a lyric she wrote decades ago and feeling, even for a moment, understood. Still, time moves on. And in recent years, fans have noticed Gloria's absence. Fewer appearances, softer updates, whispers of health challenges. The details are private, as they should be, but the love surrounding her isn't. Across the world, hearts lift prayers for the woman whose words once lifted them. Because for so many, Gloria's songs were the hand that reached out in the dark. And now, it's our turn to reach back. Naturally, that brings a question no one wants to ask out loud. Are we nearing the end of the Gaither era? There's been no farewell tour, no grand announcement. But the rhythm has slowed. The lights dim sooner. Bill, now in his late 80s, speaks more often about family, about reflection, about the sweetness of what remains. The man who once carried entire choirs and companies on his shoulders now carries memories like treasures. It doesn't feel like a goodbye. More like a sunset, slow, tender, breathtaking in its quiet beauty. Because some endings don't come with applause. They come with gratitude, with stillness, with the echo of songs that never really stop. Even if Bill and Gloria never write another lyric, their legacy is already woven into the soul of Christian music and into the lives of everyone who's ever found strength through their songs. Their music has been the soundtrack to countless beginnings and endings, baptisms, weddings, hospital rooms, and homecomings of every kind. From small-town choirs to country legends, their words have circled the globe, carrying faith farther than they could have ever imagined. The Gaithers never chased fame. They chased faithfulness, and maybe that's why they found something even greater timelessness. Their songs don't just remind us of God. They make us feel Him. And even now, as the years turn and the voices grow softer, their melody remains. Because real legacy doesn't fade, it multiplies. In every choir, in every living room, in every whispered "because He live." There's a piece of Bill and Gloria Gaither still singing, so maybe the question isn't, what's next? Maybe it's what continues, because the music still plays, the faith still speaks, and the story still sings. If one of their songs has ever carried you through, tell your story below. Let's make this more than a video, let's make it a chorus. Because that's what the Gaithers would want. Not applause, but participation. From our hearts to yours, thank you for listening, for remembering, for singing along. Until next time, keep the faith, keep the hope, and keep the music playing.